Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and on this episode of Calling All Titans, I want to talk about Timebox of the Time Travelers. Before I begin, let me say that I really like what this Titan does for the Time Travelers. If it seems like I don't in the beginning, it's because of my general feelings on the Time Travelers themselves. In my opinion, this is a good Titan with a previously bad faction. As with all Titan Event Kit Titans, I'll start with addressing the problems with the original faction, but I'm not sure where to begin. I swear, eventually I'm going to be doing a separate Faction Factory video specifically on what I think the Time Travelers should have been. The short version is that I don't like their identity. They lack a clear identity, which makes them very hard to synergize with others. The Time Travelers are like watered down zombies to me. They rely on their partner faction to determine what they can do, because their minions don't really benefit from the idea of replaying. The one exception might be Repeater Perfect. Otherwise, it's just a move that costs you your actions and power counters. I think this is evidenced in how general purpose the Time Box is. Forgive me if this is nitpicking, because I really like this Titan, but most of the Titans can be identified by a blind test. If you look at one of the two abilities as just card text, it's easy to guess what faction has that Titan. Discarding a card to play a minion here sounds like Pay the Piper of the Tricksters. A Titan mentions having the same name, definitely Innsmouth. Losing an ability until the end of the turn, Changerbots. Most Titans in the kit pass the test, but not Timebox. If you were to look at just the Timebox's talent, would you have guessed that it belonged to the Time Travelers? Nothing about their faction suggests synergy with Power 2 minions or extra actions. Although this Titan only has one ability, most have two, and you could apply the same test to the other Titans with at least one of their abilities passing. However, this does seem like a weaker form of Time Walk and can even be considered taking an extra turn, so depending on your perspective, it might actually pass the test. Still, the fact that there are effectively two talents and that both are useful shows you just how much help the Time Travelers need. Getting the Time Box into play is certainly unique. It requires 5 counters to play, and the counters can be gained in different ways. The first is at the start of your turn. If you did nothing each turn, you would get the Time Box on turn 5. But you could also place a counter when a card goes back to your hand, either from play or from the discard pile. Since it doesn't have a one or more trigger, each card returned is a separate trigger, so you could crop circles yourself into playing your Titan. Also note that the Titan can enter into play outside of Phase 2, since each of these conditions can occur at varying times, even after a base scores, such as a jumper returning to your hand after that base scores. But I don't recommend playing the Titan on the base that just scored. This brings up an interesting question. If the Time Box is already in play on a base with jumpers, do the jumpers going back to your hand place counters on the Time Box as it's leaving play? The official rule is that all cards still on that base go to their respective discard piles simultaneously. So is Time Box out of play in time to receive the counters or not? Unfortunately, the answer is no, which I've had confirmed. Not only is this consistent with the rules, but it's necessary, as it would make Timebox too easy to replay. It's worth noting that Timebox, a Titan without direct power, is extremely susceptible to a clash because of how long you'd have to wait to bring it back out. However, it's also one of the few Titans guaranteed to actually come into play eventually, as long as the game continues. The extra minion of power 2 or less plays perfectly into the jumper strategy because, as great as it is getting those minions back, they are so hard to actually play quickly. There have been occasions when I get all my jumpers back, only to discard them because I'm over my hand size during Phase 4, which defeats the purpose. Unlike Dagon, Timebox has to play them on the same base, which is probably okay since the Time Travelers themselves really cannot support a 2-base attack. The unfortunate part is, because it takes so long to get Timebox back into play, you'll want to milk the extra action for as long as possible. So it may be tempting to play your jumpers on the Timebox while concentrating your other minions elsewhere. if you can move them off the base, then you would get the best of both worlds. The Time Travelers themselves aren't really a faction that benefit from an extra action, not without the right circumstance. Whereas it worked wonders for the giant ants because it added power to power, the Time Travelers likely have a different endgame without using their partner actions. Double into the time slip makes for a great stall, although some factions are fast enough to still overcome this. If you are lucky enough to find a good Dr. Wen candidate, 2 do-overs might be really beneficial, but it also might be worthless without a good pairing. Ironically, I like that the Time Travelers deviated from their theme, whatever it was, to get general purpose talents. One of their biggest weaknesses was having a lack of synergy, and so many factions would benefit from an extra action per turn that it would help overcome the other roadblocks. The extra action from a Time Traveler's perspective can be really useful because it functions like a throne room for any of you Dominion fans out there, or in Smash-Up terms, a combination of a time loop and a non-infinite loop of the same action. When combined with It's Astounding, you can play the same action twice in a single turn and draw some interesting benefits from the double application. This is probably my favorite aspect of the Titan because of how it works with the Time Travelers. There is an extreme difference between playing the same action on consecutive turns versus twice on the same turn, which the Time Travelers get from Timebox. There are a lot of examples, and I encourage you to find your own as I can't cover all of them here, but here are a few that stand out. If you use Body Shop on an indestructible minion, which I highly recommend, that minion doubles in power. Using an It's Astounding version of Body Shop would actually quadruple the original power. A 5-powered minion can become 20 power in an instant, or you can give 10 power elsewhere for a great 2-base attack, which the Time Travelers previously couldn't do. Double Rampage on King Rex is also extremely strong, breaking 21-point bases by yourself in a single turn. Invaders with Abduction can yield 3 unanswered VP in a single turn, and the extra minion from Timebox can be a collector to grab the invader back to safety for the next turn. Double Kaiju Alliance deals 8 breakpoint damage to all bases in play. Last Dance works really well with the jumpers since they can go back into your hand. If you have Dancing King and a few jumpers, you can play Last Dance to destroy both jumpers, get them back into your hand, play one regularly and one with Timebox, and then play Last Dance again for a total 4 VP, plus any divas thrown into the mix. If you really want to manipulate someone's hand, do a double ban list or min-maxing. You can either use 2 great actions of a player, thus severely weakening them, or remove many of their cards with ban list. You'd have complete certainty on the second ban list, and this affects every player, making it extremely powerful. Ghostly Arrival from the discard pile will help you get the extra plays needed to thin your hand. You no longer need to worry about replacing Timebox if you can get low enough to bring out Cream Puff Man next. Double Cat's Paw can greatly turn around a highly contested base, and there are so many more examples. For my final example, I want to highlight Timebox's last advantage, which is that it can camp out ready to be played until you are ready. You don't have to bring it out after the 5th counter, but you must do it after a trigger, so you could do it at the start of a later turn. This would help you avoid a clash while you wait for your opportunity. The Rockstars have an excellent combo with Timebox, as it can come into play all groupies for 10 power with the extra minion play, and the extra action can play Power Ballad or Hot Venue. That's 15 power without using any of your regular plays, which is great. When used properly, Timebox takes a faction that is extremely slow and accelerates them, particularly with the right partner. I am much more excited about the usability of the Time Travelers, particularly when you have this Titan queued up for a Titan trade. What's your favorite throne room duplicate action play that Timebox can provide? Let me know in the comments. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.